With the engine and gearbox in, a good check to give you an average height at this point is to put a straight edge across the chassis, and on the 2-litre engine, which this is, it should more or less just about sit on the thermostat housing at the back. You will find that with the 1600 engines, which have got a shorter stroke, the block is a little bit shorter, and so you will have a larger space there on a 1600.
That's it.
More and more people are using the injection engine car. This does give you a little bit more work, but it does result in a more efficient and slightly more powerful 2B. The big problem is that it is a little bit more complicated, and you've got more things to fit underneath the bonnet. So you can see you've got this large aluminium casting that forms the injection apparatus that sticks above the engine about 4 inches. You can see it's got a slightly different distributor, lots of tanks and filters and things like that that you've got to accommodate, and there is some more complicated tube work. Nevertheless, it can be done. The first thing you've got to remember is that you will definitely need the engine bay wiring loom. But when you take the whole loom out of your Ford Sierra, you'll see quite clearly that there is a separate loom for the engine bay. So you really do need this engine bay wiring loom, and you do need to label it up very carefully. Obviously, it's a lot easier to supplement this engine bay wiring loom with our loom. There is a control box as well that you'll need, and some relays. These have been fitted behind this panel just here. Initially we did say it was in order to cut a small hole in the bonnet, and you could expose this aluminium casting. If it was polished up, it would look quite acceptable. But now you can see we've now developed a new bonnet where there's a D shape cut around the centre louver, and then there's a nice insert put in the bonnet, a fiberglass insert that you can see there on film, and you'll probably agree that it looks quite neat and tidy. To distinguish these bonnets between the ordinary bonnet, we put an extra 2 louvers in each block, so instead of the 5 louvers, there's 7 louvers. So it does give it that appearance of a little bit more power. So they're available from us. You will have to check because we haven't yet worked out the price on that. In the video, I know you've all video, and we're going to do the transmission tunnel. The seat back panel, which you've already fitted, we're going to take out. So we've already robbed this of the fuel tank for another car. We take out the seat back panel now, and we're now going to fit the 2 panels that make up the transmission tunnel. One front, one back on both sides. There are 2 panels. One is 29 inches long and one is 24 inches long. Sorry, one's 31 inches and one's just over 24, and both are approximately a foot deep. And there's 2 each of these. We're going to start with the longer one of the 2, and this panel goes as far forward as the cross tube that the pedals fit onto. So we look down the front of that tube like that, and we line up the front of that panel, the end of the panel, with the front of the tube. And now, with a marker, we mark where the cross tube goes, which we know is 1.5 inches wide, and we're now going to take a little bite out of that, a mouse hole, so that it'll fit round the tube. We're going to put an inch fold on this panel, so we know that that hole needs to be 1 inch plus 1.5 inches, which is 2.5 inches. So we're going to mark the top of the hole just there and just check on the 1.5 inches, yes. So we need to take a bite out of this, which is going to be approximately something like that. So with a pair of tin snips, Gilbos, jigsaw, we're going to snip that out. Like so. And we'll just tap it flat again like that. Now, so we don't forget, we going to mark this as F for face, or better still, O-U-T for outside. That's the outside. So if that's the outside, then we need to mark it from behind, because we're going to put a fold in it. So we decided on 1 inch fold. So inch there, inch just there like that. Length of 1 inch by 1 inch by 1/8 angle. This is used predominantly for the underfloor strengthening member that picks up on the handbrake. You need to cut this at 46.5 inches, like so. That is the length of piece that you'll need to go underneath the car where the handbrake is, and at 46.5 it'll pick up on the 2 lower side tubes. So put that to one side because we don't need that yet. The offcut that's left will eventually be used, or part of it will be used, to go on the front to act as a rail to pick up the bonnet safety catch or the bonnet catch. But in the meanwhile, we're going to use this piece to form the corner or the return bent edge of the sheet. Now we've chosen a trolley. It's probably a trolley that you've had your kit on when you collected it, and it has a piece of angle conveniently along the top. But you can make something like this, or you might have an old bedstead in your wife's bedroom that you could use or something like that. But I'm using this so that I can bend the section over the corner of. Obviously, some of you who are engineers will have folding machines, but most of you will have to make something like this. So with a couple of pairs of vice grips like that, we just snap that on there like that, and we're now going to tap that over so that it forms a 90-degree bend. Now remember, we marked out on the other side because that is the outside, so we need to have the corner on the outside, so we need to work from the inside. Remember, if you do get it wrong, it's not the end of the world. because you can use it on the other side. So we're going to, a wooden block, piece of wood, a hammer, and we'll start off by just tapping the corners over like that. That's pretty good. There are quite a few panels that you'll have to do this with. The shorter they are, the easier, but this is probably the longest one that there is. So we've got that formed like that. So we'll now offer it up to the car. We're now going to offer the panel up. So it goes in like that, around the tube, and yes, that's provisionally quite good. Now, we need to look because the panel needs to change direction in a couple of places. So we can see that the end of it needs to turn round to follow the shape of that tube, and just here, where the downright goes, in order for it to pull up tight to that downright tube, then it needs to change direction there. So just by spying at it, we're going to put a white mark there and directly above that bend in the top tube just there. And then all we're going to do is with the snips, put 2 small cuts in it. So we're snipping like that, and we're snipping like so. We now put the panel back in the car with the help of some grips. We're going to grip that onto there like that. And then you'll see that that will bend nicely just there. If we can look in the top, then, now I need you to look down here, cameraman, this panel in, that this, when we put this panel in, there's plenty of room between the panel and the gearbox casing, or in this case it is the starter motor housing. So we can bend this out at the point where we've made the incision, so there's plenty of room there. The more room you've got, the better, providing that your wife hasn't got size 10 feet. Plenty of room there, so to clear that. And we're going to push that up like that, so when we screw it in, it's fastened onto that upright just there. So we're going to start screwing it in position now, making sure that it's clear of the gearbox. So ready?
Yeah.
So starting off at the end, we're going to drill a hole just there. And put a screw in. Remember, as I said earlier, if you are going to weld your 2B, screw it all together first, don't weld it whatever you do, because you will have to take some of these panels out again. Screw it into the 0.7 material, and remember that when you screw it into the tube, as I'm going to do next, it's important that you do get the hole directly on the apex of the tube, or else the drill will wander and you'll find it quite difficult. So just spine down it. Couple at the top, just there.
Okay.
And the end where the the handbrake hole is, we're going to bend the tunnel side like that, where we've got the nick in it. If the vice grips will reach in, which won't really with these longer ones, then we need to pull the floor up and put a screw just there. We've got some more screws in the end of there. It hasn't particularly pulled it up very well, but remember, across directly under there will be the member referred to earlier, the inch by 1/8 angle. That will help pull it all together. We're now going to put an inch fold on the bottom of the smaller of the two panels and put that into position. Bear in mind that that back hole there for the handbrake lever, that bolts into the existing hole in the handbrake. There will also be a hole in this return flange here that will sandwich the whole lot together. So I'm now going to put the fold on the bottom of this and offer it up. With the inch return on the lower part of the smaller panel, that can be offered in like that. Tuck it behind the other panel and fit it so that it's level with the end of the floor, just there. Now remember that we did say, there's that hole again just there, the hole is just there, that we will sandwich a lot, that will be trapped in by the handbrake when the handbrake goes on there. So that will cover that hole like that. It looks like it's overlapping the other panel by about 1¼ inch, which is great. So we can, at this stage now, put one screw in this end here through all three. Like so. If you hear a funny groaning noise in the background, it's actually the dog. Very contented at the moment. You'll notice a bit of a sag in the floor. What will happen is I'll prop the floor up from underneath and I'll put a row of screws in the bottom there. and making sure that the yoke of the diff, there is at least the width of my finger, which is 3/4 of an inch, between the tunnel side and the yoke. So we'll put a row of screws in the bottom, that'll pull the floor up. And then what will happen then is we'll move straight enough onto the seat, because before you actually fit the tunnel sides in, you must make sure the seat is going to fit. So I'm assuming that you're going to fit the widest seats possible, which are the Ford Sierra seats, and I'll go over fitting the seats with you. Is now in position. We've got about a 2-inch gap between there and there, and we've agreed that we've got a 3/4 inch gap between the yoke of the prop shaft and the side of the tunnel. Note it isn't fastened at the top there, but it is fastened at the bottom in more or less a straight row from this top tube. Again, remember we've covered up that hole just there for the handbrake, which will finally drill from underneath, and we've put self-tapping screws all the way along the bottom. At this stage now, it's essential that we try the seat in, particularly if you're going to fit the Ford Sierra seats. So we'll just jet across to a seat and I'll go over what you have to do to the seat. This is a Ford Sierra seat that we've already taken the lower sliding mechanism from. You may be tempted to try to fit the seat with this sliding mechanism, but it does elevate you into the air quite a lot. So unless you're a dwarf, I'd advise you to take off that mechanism and fix the seats onto the floor directly. So we've taken off the bottom sliding mechanism. It's still leaving a few brackets that are held in by the torque drive screws. So we now need to take off that front rail with 4 screws and those 2 little bits, 2 little small brackets there. Hang on to these brackets, they're nice little brackets. They might do somewhere else in the kit to make something with. That also looks quite handy. We're also taking off these springs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 springs, and that little mattress type thing there. Don't throw these springs away. You never know when you might want a spring one day. Nice spring. Save the springs. And in addition, we're taking off the plastic covers and the mechanism that tilts the seat. We can still, we're keeping the mechanism on that tilts the seat, but we're taking off the operational handle. You will be able to tilt your seats in the future, but by using a small spanner instead of this big handle. So we're taking all that off. So we've got a seat just here that we've actually already done that work too. So you can see that that seat is prepared like I've explained to you. We're now going to try to fit this seat into the car. This is as we need a passenger seat. Remember, these seats only just fit in. If they were a 1/4 inch wider, they wouldn't fit. Make sure that you ground these 2 front of the subframe fixing bolts as flush as they'll go. Make sure that you've got the maximum cut off the end of the thread of that bolt that goes through the trailing arm. Give it a bit of a beat with a hammer, as far across as possible, and then for good measure you may need, just to get the seat, you'll find that those 2 often just stick out a little bit. So just give those a swift blow like that with the hammer, won't do them any harm, and then that will ensure that your seat will fit in. So we're now going to try the seat in, and we'll try it in like that. And you can see that that neatly goes in like that. It fits in nice and square, and we can still get at the mechanism to adjust the seat there, the back tilt. And the point of coming to, the reason we haven't fitted the top of the tunnel is that if necessary, if it is tight, then that tunnel will bend inwards like that. In this case, we're not doing too bad for space. That's the seating position. It's touching the back there. It fills the space nicely, and we can then go on now and fasten the tunnel in all the way along the top there like that. Incidentally, to hold the seat if we just go back to the seat we have across here, in the kit we did supply with 8mm threaded rod, so into those holes there where those torque drive screws go, then you'll be able to put some of that 8mm threaded rod with a lock nut on it, leave about 2 inches sticking out, and you'll get 4 studs coming out of the seat that you can drill the floor and fasten the seat in. You may have trouble with the one directly underneath the strengthening plate, so you may get away with just 3. We move to another car that's stainless steel panelled that we're a little bit further on with, and you can see that in this car we've got the fuel tank in and we've got the seat back panel in position, again only temporary because it could have to come out again, and we've got the 2 tunnel sides and the handbrake in. Take note that we've got the tunnel sides with self-tapping screws at the top, but we've now replaced the self-tapping screws in the bottom for 6mm nuts and bolts. So you see all the way along there we've taken the self-tapping screws out and substituted 6mm nut and bolt, a couple in the tunnel there, and they go forward. Now the point we're coming to now is you can see we've just planished over the top of the tunnel sides, gone over the top like that. With a hammer, we've planished it over with a hammer, just tapped it gently, and now we're going to fit the tunnel top panel, the one that looks like a cricket bat with a hole in it, or... So to fit this, we're going to take the gear stick out and we're going to offer up the hole so as it is directly above the hole in the gearbox top like that, and we're going to fasten it in provisionally with a few screws. Basically we're going to planish over the edge, so we need to put a bit of a crank in this end where the tank is. So we'll just do that by hand, like so. Like that. And then if we mark it from behind, we can put quite a sharp crank in that. There. And we'll put a nick. No, we won't. Put a nick. We'll just ensure that it's directly above the hole like that. That's good. We'll just form it so it goes down into the corner as much as we can. Right into the corner. Keep it curved, then it looks neat. Don't worry if it doesn't quite reach the top, because the dashboard does come down there. So what I'm going to do now, and there's no point you watching this while I do it, because the video will be not 4 hours, not 5 hours, but it'll go on all through the night. So I'm going now to put a few self-tapping screws, probably half a dozen, into the tunnel top to hold it in position, because the next stage is I'm going to planish over the sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 self-tapping screws. I'm going to do that now. Remember, a little bit difficult, if you don't drill the tube directly on the apex, the drill wanders and the drill snaps.
Okay.
Okay, we've got the tunnel top now screwed in position. the cameraman's told me there's more than 6 screws in it, which there is. You'll notice that we've bent the end just there and we've temporarily clipped it to the petrol tank. Don't drill into the petrol tank, whatever you do. Remember the petrol tank's there, just be a bit careful with it. Taking the vice grips off that end, we've got a neat corner just there, as you can see. All we did was get a bit of tube there and just beat it like that, corner. And now we're going to form the edge of the tunnel top over the side panels. Now I've got a 1.5 pound ball peen hammer. I'm using this because that's probably what you've got. We could use wooden mallets, rawhide mallets, shrinking hammers, all kinds of things, but that's what you've got in your shed. You bought from the cheap tool man, and this is what we're going to use. So with this, we're just going to carefully tap the corner over, like so, just a little bit at a time. The little bit in the corner is a tricky bit just there. Right, basically that's it. What I'm going to do now is to take it off and put it on a flat level surface and planish this from the inside so that it's a little bit smoother and hasn't got those sharp corners in it. So I'm going to take it off and lay it on a flat surface and planish it from the other side. I'm going to do both sides, and then basically that then is the tunnel top complete. The next thing we'll cover is when we cover it with either leather cloth or carpet. We're now back to the mild steel car again now, and the next job is to fit the body side panels. Now we've deliberately left those till last, simply because, particularly with the stainless steel ones, we don't want to damage them. So while we're branching hammers and leaning over the side, etc., it's better that these panels are left off. So we're now going to fit them to the car, and we're going to fit them carefully. Remember that with this car we haven't yet screwed the floor from underneath. Remember that was going to be one of your early operations, that we're putting screws all the way along the tubes at the side from underneath and directly into this tube here. So they're not in it yet. So we'll probably carry on and put the side panels on without those, but bear in mind you've got to do that.
Go.
Before you fit this panel, just run your hand over the edge of the tube like that, along there, along the bottom. Make sure there's no lumps of weld sticking out. We've already ground that weld there that was a little bit proud, but look for weld splatter. Even the smallest little lump of weld will press through the outer panel and show when you painted it, particularly with the stainless. It's a little bit like the Princess and the Pea, just one small bit to a perfectionist would spoil it. So we get the panel and we offer it up. So we go like this, we hook it over the top and we slide it along the members like that until it terminates at that top wishbone tube just there. We then look at the back and we can see that we've got to trim a little bit off that end. In actual fact, we've got to trim off around about an inch. We take off an inch just there, like that. Directly below that point, we need to make an incision in the bottom return, just there. I'm going to make the incision and stop right about 3/8 from the edge. Now, we don't put that incision in simply because it would make the panel very wobbly. So it's pretty definite, but between you getting the kit from us and fitting the panel, we let it bend. So we've left that for you to cut. So we're going to just slip that like that. Don't go right up to the edge, stop about 3/8 before. And just here we're going to take that bit out. The top like so. I've tipped the car on its side to make it a little bit easier for you to see and for us to get in to drill it from underneath. So remember to handle these panels carefully. So we've got the panel like that, and we're now going to hold it at the front like that and just press the back. Again, just you're pointing down there. So with the front up hard against the wishbone tube and with a little bit cut out of there, we're going now to press the panel to the side of the body, and where we've made the incision in the bottom, there will be a slight bend in the panel where it changes direction. And I can see now that we need to trim some off the lower returned edge again. And again, it's round about an inch, inch and a quarter. And I mark it with a white marker so you can see it. And I'll take the panel off. You can see we've just marked it just there, and we now need to cut that little piece off there. Oh, that's it, right. So that's pretty good, is it?
Yeah. Glare off your ball patch.
So we offer the panel back up again, tucking it round the bottom, tucking it in just there. And then we can see now, yes, it presses in like that. And the panel slightly changes in direction in the middle like that. So that's
Yeah. So let it out.
We've now got the panel laid in position, and we know now, or at least I know, that the panel is going to fit. Now, the body sides of the 2B have a lot of shape to them, and the shape that the car should be is correct. Obviously both sides must be the same. So because of the size we've manufactured these panels, when the panel is screwed in, you will find there is a bow to the panel, and this is intentional so that it gives the car character and it doesn't have the slab-sided look. But you must be very careful how you get the bow, and it must be a bow that is acceptable in so much that it isn't too great and yet it's not too weak that it will spring back in again. So to start off, this what might sound like a difficult operation, we're going to start off by fastening the top of the panel directly onto the tube, again with self-tapping screws. So I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to do the bottom, and then we'll work towards a very, very difficult bit at the back. So I've screwed it to the top of the frame there, pressing it in gently against the tube. I've put 1, 2, 3, about half a dozen screws in there, and then we've got it so that I've bent the tag away, the temporary tag that holds the floor in position, I've bent that flat, and we've got the side of the panel pressing against the tube, at least in the middle where it touches, and then I'm going to get some vice grips and just vice grip the front corner that we can get at from the top in here.
Yeah.
So we're clamping that together with the vice grips. Like so. And then we're going to get down and screw that panel in from underneath. Right, you'll notice that I'm wearing goggles, and we're starting at the incision where we know the panel's hard up against there, and we're going to start drilling just there. If you just bear with me, I'll just drill a couple more, then we'll do the tricky bit at the back. I've now put the screws in on the front part of the side panel up to the middle incision. Now that is relatively easily, they're fitted quite well. I've put about 5 in, obviously you'll need more towards the end of the job. We now come to the back, which is a little bit more tricky, because now you'll see, it may worry you a little bit, that there is quite a gap between the floor and the side panel. So again, we need to push it in very gently, and you'll see now that we need to push that edge up. So it's no longer flat, the side panel is actually bowing out, it's twisted at the top, but we still need to push that edge up till it touches the floor, and then we need to put a screw in. So you need a little bit of help here, and where we made the incision, that is tucked under. It could be over, but it's tucked under that, and there's a slight bend in the side. So I'm going to put the goggles on again. I'm going to press the panel in with my knee like that, and I'm going to drill a hole like so, and get one screw in at least. So I've got that one screw there, and although it's making the floor slightly bent there, at least I've got that edge up together. So we're going now to jet along that side and put half a dozen screws in very quickly. Right, that is the provisional screws underneath. We're now going to move to the top, and at this stage now, I've got to confess that nearly every time I think to myself, this isn't going to work. So we come to the top, and we can see, up you come cameraman, and we come to the top, and we can see we've got the panel greatly distorted, bellowing out and flaring out like that. And basically this is what gives the 2B its unique shape at the sides. So we've got to now gently push that panel in, starting from the front just there and working our way along, just like that. I can see straight away that all my fears are unfounded. This is going to work. So again, with the help are my trusty vice grips. We've got good quality ones and naff ones, and you do need the good quality ones when you're trying to grip this 1.5 inch tube. The sheet clamped in position with your vice grips, we're going to drill at the very, very top of the sheet, about 1/4 inch from the edge. Put screws all the way along. You'll see that I've got the minimum of screws in this panel now, and you can see we've got a lovely shape to that panel like that there. That is the shape it's supposed to have, and we will put, obviously, drill more holes, and then those screws will be substituted for pot rivets, because there is a cap, a plastic cap goes on the top of that. Remember, you need to handle these panels delicately at this stage. Be really, really careful, because we are looking to get a nice, straight, level panel without any ripples at all in it. It is quite solid where the curve is there, while it's a little bit wobbly just there. Remember, towards the end of your build, you'll be able to put braces in from the inside of this panel to stiffen it up. You'll also be able to possibly spray some expanding foam inside. That helps it terrifically. But remember to handle it carefully, and I really wouldn't advise welding the panel on at all, because all you're going to do is get terrible buckling on the panel. I'm going to carry on with the other side of the car. That's the driver's side, putting in the tunnel, the foot panel, and then the body side. First of all, we'll start with the front tunnel section. I've already cut a hole out of it and bent the bottom edge, and at this stage now it's a good idea to put the speedometer cable in, because it is difficult to get at later on. So we've got the original cable from the Ford Sierra, and we're going to examine it for any damage to it, any severe kinks in it, and we're going to pull out the inner cable, wipe it clean, wash it in petrol, and lightly re-grease it and put it back in. Note that's a circlip that you took out, you've perhaps lost it, get a new one from a Ford agent. With your finger stuck up the speedometer end of the Speedo cable to push the cable well in, push the square end into that little hole, make sure it's gone in. Like so. And then you need your circlip with some circlip pliers, or like I've got, a mini pair of snipe nose pliers, and put the circlip in. It's a good idea to make sure that groove is well cleaned out, so that it goes in easily and the clip does actually go into the groove. That's done in like that, that's good. Just push it in. Oops, it's sprung out. Right, that is now firmly into that slot, and we've cut the mouse hole in the side of the hole in the tunnel, just slightly bigger in this instance, and we're going to put a little bit of split rubber tube on. So with a little bit of tube, we're going to cut a piece off the size of the mouse hole, which is about 4 inches, like so, and then we're going to cut down it, the long length of it, being careful that you don't cut your fingers. That's it, and that's going to go onto that round there, so the sharp edge of the side panel doesn't cut the Speedo cable. That's going over there like that. It's going over there like that. Then we carry on now and we screw that side panel down onto the floor as we did on the other side. This is the larger of the two feet panels. The two circular cuts are where the two side tubes go, and the widest part is at the top. This is the tunnel side. So we now need to fold it. So we're going to fold it along there like that, and then at the bottom along there, and at the sides like that. We're going to try it in like that first, and then we'll decide where we're going to fold it at the top. So back to the trusty folding machine that we used before. That little bit of angle, bent over your end of your wife's bed. I'll just fold this now. Or do we have to?
Okay.
With the tunnel fitted in position, with it screwed in at the back, up to that incision there, we've now got the front floating, and we can now offer up this foot panel that we bent as we showed you where the dotted lines were. So we're offering that up like that, and we can see that that's looking quite good. It looks as though we could just take a little bit of a bigger bite out the top for perfection. So we've now worked out where the bottom needs to be, like that. We'll take the panel out, and then we'll drill and put screws in along the bottom. With the bottom of the tunnel screwed in, we're going to offer up for the second time this panel. It goes into there. You can see that it fits quite well. We need to bend the top now, so the top will go underneath the plate there that holds the servo. So we need to spy there, and it ran about 1.5 inches from the top. So we'll go and put a fold in that. In fact, we'll just put a shallow fold in it, because it means that we can adjust it if necessary. So we'll just bend it round there like that. It means we can bend that up. It's not quite so precise, but remember, this is going to have to come out at some future time to cut the hole in for the steering, and obviously what will happen, I've got to trim this in the future kits, that this panel will be a little bit more precise, and hopefully that future builders won't have quite so much work to do to this panel. But there is the material there to go at. Those of you who've got a little bit more time might even want to make one out of cardboard to start with. That's just going to go around that tube there. We've tried this in. I can see now that I really should have bent that the other way. So it's a good job we didn't put a definite fold in it. So we're going to bend it back the other way. So that means that all the folds are now going the same way. Try it again. Yeah, a little bit off this corner. Right, that is that panel in the position where it's going to be when it's finally on the car. So we will just put a couple of screws in it so that it's held in position. Right, that's 4 screws in, holding that panel in. That'll do temporarily at least. Now I'm going to fit the exhaust to the car, at least provisionally. We've put the original Pinto manifold on, and make sure when you do it that you put new gaskets between the block and the manifold, and you replace any studs that snapped off, and at least you run your nuts up and down the studs to make sure it goes on easily. So we now come to put the exhaust on. Also make sure that you've got the 3 studs free. We've now got the exhaust in position where it will go. What we need to do now is to record where the hole in the side is going to be. So with some masking tape we're going to pull that strip down like that, and then we can see